What's going on? Player Profiler Nation. It's the latest episode of the Futurecast. I'm your host, Matty. Kiwoom. I am joined by Theo Gremminger, OG, and we got a big one. Why? You may be asking. Well, I don't know. Maybe there was a big scouting event that happened last week in Indianapolis, and now we have a ton of information on all these rookies. So we have not a one, not a two, not a three, but a four-person Rookie Mock Draft. We're going 3 rounds deep. We're joined by our very, very special guest here. You've seen him here on the show. I think this is your third appearance, right? Is this your third appearance, John?
John's third time in the cut.
This is your third appearance, John. So John Laub is joining us again. He's been doing great work here. His running back rankings, receiver rankings, they're out now. And we're joined right here also by a newcomer player profiler, someone I'm very, very excited to talk to, Mr. Austin Abbott. What's going on, Austin?
What's going on, man? Happy to be here. Happy to talk ball, man. I'm excited. This is going to be a fun one today.
Yeah, and I'm really stoked because John and Austin have been putting out really, really cool work for us at Player Profiler here. A lot of you know John, and John's going to talk about the written pieces that he has in a few minutes. But Austin, why don't you let everybody know about the video content that you're producing, not only with Player Profiler, but on your own?
Absolutely. So I appreciate that, Theo. And at Austin Abbott FF on Twitter, all social media platforms. I put out the majority of my content on Twitter. But I'm usually putting out rookie prospect profiles each day. Today, I actually compared Alvin Kamara and Jalen Wright at Tennessee. But yeah, man, draft content, rookie content, it's what I enjoy most, and I think a lot of people are enjoying it as well, man. It's fun to talk about. The combine just happened, so the draft weekend is my favorite weekend of the year. It's not even close, so I'm excited to talk ball today, fellas.
Yeah, no, for sure. And definitely check out Austin's work. You can find it right here on Player Profiler YouTube if you're watching the Futurecast on YouTube. And John, you're putting out really, really great written work. You were recently on the Game Plan with Matty. You've been hitting the Player Profiler podcast. But you dropped a new article this week. What should people be looking for?
I added 6 more running backs, the prospect resume, as well as the scouting reports from my film and tape study. So sometime this week, the top 12 running back prospects for Dynasty football leagues, and they will change eventually after the draft and landing spot. But you can see who they are in my book. Plus, it has a link to my model with 31 running backs ranked who, I expect about 25 of them will likely be drafted around that range. So I hope I have all of who I perceive to be the draftable running backs ranked for you in my model. You can click on it, and it's a shared spreadsheet so everyone can see how I look at them from a model perspective. And then next week, I'll be adding the wide receivers. I have 6 up there right now, but I'm working on the next 6 wide receivers, so you'll have 12 wide receivers next week.
And Matty Kiwoom, you were at the NFL Combine with Cody Carpenter. You guys have been dropping some really, really good stuff on the hurdle. Happy to have you ripping a Futurecast with me tonight. How was the whole experience from being in Indianapolis and getting to see everything firsthand?
It was a fantastic experience, and a lot of what I found to be super informative and helpful were the opportunities to talk to the kids, opportunities to hear what they had to say about their game, what they thought they were bringing to an NFL franchise. And it just kind of helps you paint the full picture. All we need, we're trying to look for, as much information as we can, whether it be to prepare for our rookie mocks or do mock drafts. Like I'll be dropping mock 3.0. Yeah, that was a pretty good segue to a plug coming up soon post combine. But yeah, getting a chance to interact with these kids was fantastic.
Yeah, that's really, really cool stuff, and I enjoyed your videos. Check out Matty's Twitter, and definitely check out his article. I released my NFL Combine winners, and certainly tonight you're going to see how these players are moving. We're going to do a 3-round mock draft, but before we get that started, I thought we should go around the horn here. We'll start with Austin on this one. First time in Futurecast. Who was your biggest post-Combine riser for you of any of these players in your Dynasty evaluation process?
Yeah, absolutely, Theo. Someone who really stuck out to me, and man, like here I am, and it's crazy how high I am on this player all of a sudden. I try not to let the combine skew me a little bit too much either direction, try to keep a level head, but it's Marshawn Lloyd, man. He's been rising in my rankings quicker than he should be. All right. Per PFF, man, 87th percentile rushing grade. That stuck out to me, right? That's a very good mark. 99th percentile missed tackles forced per attempt, 99th percentile yards after contact per attempt, and 100th percentile missed tackles forced per reception. So you can call him elusive. You can call him pretty quick, right? He had a phenomenal speed score for his size, man. His 40 time was 4.46 at 220 pounds. That was wildly impressive. Speed score of 111.2. That was 93rd percentile, 36 vert. Man, I was pleasantly surprised at him coming in at 5'9", 220. And here's what I'll say, man. Keep in mind, Marshawn Lloyd, he had an impressive 7.1 yards per carry in 2023. And something that a lot of people don't even know, Caleb Williams helped recruit Marshawn Lloyd. And he wanted to play with him at USC, right? So that's never going to be a bad thing when the 101 vouches for you, right? When he handpicks you. And Lloyd, he has fresh legs, right? Low tread on his tires because he didn't have an abundance of volume necessarily. And his most recent year in college, his junior season, played 11 games, over 1,000 total yards, 9 touchdowns, and again, a very impressive 7.1 yards per carry. So I've been adjusting my rookie rankings, and I just want to say Marshawn Lloyd's climbing them quickly.
No, it's good stuff. Marshawn Lloyd and Caleb Williams, high school opponents at DeMatha and Gonzaga in the WCAC. Then they played together. It could be the first quarterback and the first running back off the board. He definitely helped himself out. John, who's your biggest riser?
It's going to be in the running backs, and I was reluctant to put this man this high because I love the film. But anyone who knows me, I know the challenge of a player coming out of the group of 5 conferences. And it's Kamani Vidal of the Troy Trojans. When I watched the film in December, I was blown away. He is a violent, aggressive runner through the hole. I mean, he punches people. But he was listed at 5'8", about 215 on the Troy website. So I needed to get some, measurements. He's 5'8", 213. And why I like that, his BMI is 32.4. You really like to have that BMI over 30. So he hits that incredible threshold. But when I saw him in the 40, 4.46. But more importantly, his burst and agility in the 20-yard shuttle, 4.15 and 7.01. I'm all in. I think he's Devin Singletary with more athleticism. And Devin Singletary has been a very nice dynasty asset for the last couple years. I really like Kamani Vidal. If he's in the 4th round, I'll draft him in every dynasty draft that I have.
I love it, John. And he gives you a 107 speed score. Really impressive stuff. I know, Matty, you've been on Kamani Vidal for a while now. Good to see him have those sort of numbers. Matty, who's your biggest riser?
For me, I'm just going to stick with the obvious. It's wide receiver from Texas, Xavier Worthy. 4.21 speed does a number of things for him as a prospect. What it does is it pretty much solidifies him as a first-round pick. I think 4.21 speed makes teams who weren't going to be targeting receivers now target receivers, and as fantasy managers, we can now relax that we are not gambling on a second-round receiver. We're going to be getting a first-round blue chip baby. And the difference between Worthy and a lot of the former sub 4.3 runners is he's been a lot more productive than your Rosses and your what's the Dorial Green, not Beckham.
Darius Hayward-Bay.
There it is, bam.
Darius Hayward-Bay.
We're talking about a guy who was a 5-star prospect, track superstar, was an early producer, 98th percentile college breakout age, led the Longhorns in receiving yards all 3 of his years, including 2022, where he played with a broken hand. If you could kind of justify the drop problem in 2022 and you parlay that with the production for 3 years, the target share of 30%. So he's not a one-trick pony. 30% with Jatavian Sanders, with A.D. Mitchell is something to marvel at, something to get excited about. And Xavier Worthy now, for me, he's got to be a lock for first-round rookie picks, regardless of the format.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy, a huge winner, 4.21. It was probably the coolest thing we've ever seen at the Combine when he decides to run it again. despite the 4.25. And for me, guys, I had a couple of winners. I thought you guys had some really, really good answers there. But one guy that keeps growing on me is Malik Washington. And this is a guy who played quarterback in high school. He went to Northwestern, ends up transferring to UVA, has this insane season production-wise this past year, gets 110 receptions, did well on special teams, then goes to the Shrine Bowl and is like the talk of the Shrine Bowl. Matty, maybe we need to send somebody to the Shrine Bowl next year because all these Shrine Bowl guys are shown out. But he ends up having a 192-pound measurement at 5'8.5", and then he leads all wide receivers with a 42.5-inch vertical. He has a basketball background and certainly showed on that. And he backed up his vertical with a 4.47 40. So this is a guy that I think, based on the production, based on the athleticism, I think he's going to end up in the third round. And this is such a good wide receiver class that I think a guy like Malik Washington, if he lands well, this is a guy that I'm going to want a lot of exposure to. Now, a lot of times we see this sort of mega producer and we have to raise an eyebrow at it. But when a guy backs it up with this sort of athletic numbers, that's a guy that I want to have some exposure to. And I don't think the market's quite moved all the way on Malik Washington. Wanted to also talk about your biggest post-combine faller. Let's start with Austin on that one.
Absolutely, Theo. And I think you nailed it, man. I'm actually mad you talked about Malik Washington because I wanted to yap about him. He's one of my favorite sleepers, so I'm really glad that you did touch on him. Bucky Irving. Right, here we go, man. This was a tough one. I really like Bucky Irving as a prospect. There's a lot that I do like about Bucky Irving. It was, again, the combine is it's good for what it is. I try not to pay too much attention to it or take too much away from it, right? I don't want to get too discouraged, but Bucky Irving coming in lighter at 192 pounds, slower than anticipated during his 40 time. That's never a good recipe for a receiver who's like a fringe day 2 pick as it is. Now, man, it's looking like he's going to be a day 3 pick at this rate, right? I think if he could fall in the 4th round, like he would probably be relatively happy at this point based off his showing at the NFL Combine. Bucky Irving is a player who increased annually in, receptions, targets, rushing yards, rushing attempts, touchdowns. Like he thrived year after year, continued to improve his draft capital. And now that this happened, it's like a step back. And I'm afraid that it's going to cost him a lot of money. It's going to negatively impact his draft capital. And he's a player that if you're still in on, good for you, man, because now you can get him later in your Dynasty rookie drafts. So just something to keep in mind, man. I think he's got juice, but maybe not as much as I initially thought.
Sub 90 speed score guys are hard to bet on historically. And it was funny because that was a guy that we thought was going to fly in the 40, and he certainly didn't.
Yep.
He certainly was light. So that's a tough one. I think he's definitely one of the big losers. John, what was the guy that maybe you're having to adjust a little bit on?
So I agree with Bucky Irvin. I was hoping for under a 4.5, like a 4.4, 4.6, and 4.46. He didn't come close. A tidbit about Malik Washington. He did play at Illinois. And I think what people have to understand, Illinois is one of the poorest passing teams in college football. So if you look at his numbers at Illinois, you can't look at volume. You have to kind of try to find efficiency because he wasn't actually as bad as you think if you understand how bad.
The disrespect for Illinois, for the Northwestern Wildcats, to say he played for their rival, the Fighting Illini. Northwestern, John. We'll correct you on that one. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Sorry, you're right. Northwestern. Oh, I'm sorry. But that's part of the reason why his numbers aren't. He's not in one of those high flying offenses early in his college career. I'm going to say I couldn't believe how poorly he run. I actually had a double check. Audric Estime broke at a 4.71, man. Like, I was hoping for a 4.55 with that size and BMI. But 4.71, I'm very concerned. He's definitely a day 4 guy now, or day 3, maybe 4th or 5th round. But that was a very poor showing. Now, I do believe he has a pro day. And from what I understand, he's going to run again. Maybe we get some agility and bursty scores with the 20-yard shuttle and 3-cone drill. But right now, I'm very disappointed in the Notre Dame running back.
Yeah, that one broke our hearts. And I know, John, last time you were on with Matty and I, we talked about Audric Estime, and that was a guy that, all three of us were into. And like Matty, that's the kind of guy that looks like a 4-5 guy on film, had all those breakaway runs, but tough one to bet on. He had the other testing numbers were okay. He's not like quite as dead, but I mean, it was definitely disappointing. Matty, who's the player that really broke your heart?
Real quick before I move to my guy, I just want to say our last mock actually, Estime went before the guys of Jalen Wright, Jonathan Brooks, and Marshawn Lloyd. That's what we thought of Audric Estime just a few weeks ago. But my biggest faller isn't necessarily someone who's been tanked in my rankings, but has definitely fallen out of first round consideration for me in rookie drafts, and that's Troy Franklin.
Yeah.
He came in shorter than expected, lighter than expected, was slower than expected. And guys, he put together one of the worst on-field workout sessions of the class. One of the worst gauntlets, if not the worst. It looked like he was tacking on the high seas. It was a bad performance, and now I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing someone who wasn't overly dominant in college, even though he had a good surface stats this year. I'm seeing a guy who's smaller, a little bit skinnier than I thought, slower than I thought, 53rd percentile arm length also. I'm starting to struggle to see where Troy Franklin wins on an elite level, where he becomes an elite fantasy producer. So although I'm not out on the prospect, there's still two very key components to this process, his pro day and, of course, the NFL draft. But as of right now, he is outside of my top 10 for my wide receivers after Saturday.
Outside the top 10, that's tough. And I know Cody's negative towards Troy Franklin before. He's probably, gloating after that combine. But I will say, like, the gauntlet thing, like Garrett Wilson had a bad gauntlet. Like, some of these guys have bad gauntlets. But yeah, it was really disappointing for Troy Franklin to see that number. Matty, we want to be a little taller. We want to be a little faster. We want to see the gauntlet be a little tighter. And it's just harder to bet on him now because I think we were betting on him being a first-round pick, and that looks like way less apparent. I think he'll still be a second-round pick if I had to bet on it, but it's just such a deep wide receiver class. And I'll say, like, you guys nailed it. Those are the three that really stood out for me in terms of my own personal ranks. I'll say one guy that was a little disappointing. I expected more out of Jatavian Sanders athletically. And I think it's not like Jatavian Sanders. I don't move him off of tight end 2. I think he's tight end 2 of the class. But I think the gap between him and Brock Bowers was already exceedingly large, and it gets even larger. Brock Bowers weighs 245. Jatavian Sanders runs a 4.69 40. So he's actually slower than Ben Sinnott. He's slower than Theo Johnson. He's slower than Jaheim Bell. He's slower. And I thought, Matty, when we talked about him in a Futurecast, this is a guy that we thought would run in the 4.5s and be like that athletic difference maker at tight end. So I don't know. They have the Big 12 Pro Day, which is really cool. Their whole conference is doing basically a mini NFL combine with NFL testing. So maybe JT Sanders picks it up a little bit there. But again, like for non-tight end premium scoring, he becomes a little less interesting in our rookie drafts. How about a sleeper, guys? People are not really talking about. John gave us Kamani Vidal. Why don't we start with John on this one? Give us another sleeper right now that maybe doesn't have the buzz, but you think maybe people should be talking about him.
A player that I've watched a ton this year, and this might sound bizarre. I watched too much Rice football. It is Luke McCaffrey. And I was very interested in his athletic ability, and I'm always reluctant with players at the G5 level. He is going to thrive as a slot receiver. I think he has a ceiling of 800 to 900 yards annually with like 6 to 8 touchdowns. But when we're in these deep dynasty leagues, he is going to be a flex starter at some point for you. He went to Nebraska as a quarterback. He goes to Rice in 2021 to 22. He converts to wide receiver. Been really productive for the Owls. What I like, the 4.46 in the 40, 4.02 in the shuttle. Oh my God, and a 6.70. I mean, he hit the agility and the burst, and here's what I thought. When I saw him separate at Rice, I saw that athletic ability, but of course he's playing against secondary who aren't going to be in the NFL. So I thought, is it my eyeballs deceiving me? He is the brother of Christian, so I think there's actually he can't be as good as his brother narrative, right? Like, his dad played wide receiver and won 3 Super Bowl rings, people. His dad was a late bloomer. His dad was a late bloomer in the NFL. He hung around with the Giants for a while in the 49ers. Then he goes to Denver and becomes a rock star. Luke McCaffrey, I have a 4th-round grade on him. That's how bullish. I love Luke McCaffrey. And the NFL is going to draft him. They're going to draft him, no question in my book. And he's more athletically gifted than I thought.
I love it. And Matty Kiwoom's talked about him here on Futurecast for a while now as a guy that Matty's been into. So it's good to see him have that sort of a combine. Austin, give us a guy.
Absolutely. Jalen McMillan, man. Talk about one of my favorite sleepers. I don't know why no one's talking about him, but they should start paying attention, man. He was so good for Washington, and it wasn't just 1 year, man. As far as size goes, he's actually really, really close to Stephon Diggs in terms of size. 6'1", 197 pounds. And people forget, man, like Stephon Diggs, 5th-round pick, right? Jalen McMillan is going to get, I would anticipate at this point, better draft capital than that. And, man, Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze, they were a scary duo at Washington. They both eclipsed 1,000 yards in 2022. He had 79 receptions, just under 1,100 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns. He was a dog. He was popping off. He was doing so well. And then in 2023, this season, Jalen McMillan, man, like, here's the thing that people don't even realize. He was on a mission this season. 95 yards against Boise State to start the year, 120 yards, 96 yards, 131 yards. His first 4 out of 5 games, 95 plus yards. He was popping off, and I just think he was going to put together a very high quality season prior to his leg injury versus Michigan State in week 3. I would like to see improvement regarding separation for Jalen McMillan. His 4.47 40 time was reassuring. I enjoyed seeing that. But the last thing I'll say about Jalen McMillan, dynamic with the ball in his hands. I really enjoyed his film, and he's a very gifted wide receiver.
Yeah, it's some of those guys kind of blend in because the Washington had 3 wide receivers who are going to get drafted this season. Matty, I'll go first on this one. Dylan Laub, I mean, he's locked in, and we talked about like what we wanted to see from Bucky Irving. We sort of got from Dylan Laub because he weighs in over 205 pounds. He gives us a 4.5, 4.40. He's got nearly 100 speed score. He's locked in. I think there's a chance that he could be a 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick, and I think a lot of teams really like him. John, we talked about kind of philosophically about whether it's a good thing or not that the NFL teams are testing him out at wide receiver as well. I think it just means he can catch the ball. So Dylan Laub is one I'm really rooting for, and Matty's Kiwoom's been on him for months. So another Matty spots these guys early on, and then they have good comments. It's always good to see. And I'll say Jaden Sheridan. I'll give Curtis Patrick a big shout out. I had Curtis Patrick of Rotoviz on Dynasty Life the other day, and he's talking about Jaden Sheridan on Friday. And then on Saturday, Jaden Sheridan runs a 4.46 40. He had tied for the best 10-yard split among all running backs. So he's a little bit smaller, but he had a 1.51 10-yard split. So the first 10 yards of the 40, he's extremely explosive, runs the 4.45 40, has this very good RAS score. This is a guy that has passing game skills, small school back, but he's definitely on the radar. And especially when you see some of these guys like, Cody Schrader had a pretty poor combine. There's a couple guys who I think some of these smaller school guys are potentially going to go ahead of, and you got to love seeing that. How about you, Matty?
So my biggest sleeper right now is someone that is a bit older of a prospect. Already he's 24 years old, but at this position, I don't really give a hoot. My worry for this guy is he doesn't get any draft capital, but if he does, I'm going to be on the radar of Tyrone Tracy Jr. from Purdue, 5'11", 210 pounds. Came out and ran a 4.48 40, 93rd percentile burst score, 76th percentile speed score. He had only 714 rushing yards last year. That was 2nd on Purdue. He was 4th on the team in carries. Just didn't really get the opportunity, but PFF graded him out pretty nicely. 90.5 run grade. That above 90 threshold is what we like to see. 14 breakaway runs, led the Purdue Boilermakers. And even last year, 19 receptions on 25 targets, led the backfield in targets. So this guy just didn't really get an opportunity. And as we talked pre-show about my man Jordan Todman, sometimes these guys just need a chance in the NFL. And if he gets one, I'm going to absolutely be in on Tyrone Tracy Jr.
Yeah, no, definitely one of these guys who tested very, very well. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go through a 3-round single quarterback mock draft. The Superflex mock drafts, those are easy. Single QB. We're going to have to flag plant some guys. Stick with us here at Futurecast.
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from Player Profiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
What a professional Matty Kiwoom is. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you see the beautiful, beautiful document that Matty's put on. If you are listening on a podcast, we're going to give an update every, what do you think, Matty? Every 12 picks? Is that all right?
Yeah, I think every round should be good. Maybe do first half of the first, back half of the second, and then just each round. We'll see, but we'll give nice recaps. Okay,
that sounds good to me. So we're going to start with Austin Abbott, first time on Futurecast. Austin, 101, are you feeling spicy or are you feeling chalky?
No, I'm not spicy at all, man. I am Conor McGregor walking, flailing my arms. I am putting the card in. I am walking away with Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 101. I'm feeling good about it, man. 3.44 yards per route run, 14 touchdowns with C.J. Stroud in 2022, 14 touchdowns with Kyle McCord in 2023. He's quarterback proof. It doesn't matter, man. He is the real deal, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Easy choice. John Laub, another easy choice for you.
Yeah, it is. If you've heard me before throughout this draft process so far, it's Malik Neighbors of LSU. I absolutely love him. I mean, I was actually watching more film of him today, and he is so good out of the slot, and he can attack defenses deep. He is just such a versatile playmaker. I'm going to take him at number 2 here.
Matty Kiwoom, you gave me the hard pick here because now we have Brock Bowers weighing in at 245. Mm-hmm. You know that's my guy. That's your guy too, Matty Kiwoom. Matty Kiwoom doing the Brock Bowers write-up for the Player Profiler Rookie Guide. Sure. That should be very interesting to read about. But Matty, first of all, what's the premium here in the scoring? You don't tell me that.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter with these types of in class.
Okay, so let's say it's a one. Let's say it's a. We'll take away the tight end premium. We're going to make it 1 point PPR for this scoring.
1 point PPR, and definitely.
I don't think you can go wrong with this selection. I think Rome Odunze and Brock Bowers, they're so locked in. Tight end premium, it's certainly Brock Bowers for me. But Matty, I think I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I think I'm going to go Rome Odunze here. Rome Odunze, 6'3", 212, runs a 4.45 40. He's going to get drafted inside the top 10 picks. This is a wide receiver 1. This is an alpha. Matty, it pains me to let my guy Brock Bowers, my tight end 2 in Dynasty right now, but I'm going to let you draft him here at the 104.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to take him, but I want to talk about Rome because I wanted Rome. And one tidbit that I will say about Rome Odunze is when he had his media scrum, this kid is going to be an absolute superstar. This kid is going to be everything you want in an altering franchise type offensive player. I was hoping he'd follow me at the 104. He didn't, but I'll go Brock Bowers because, like you said, Theo, Dynasty tight end 2, and it makes all the sense in the world. 245 at the combine. Didn't run, but do we care? He's going to be fast in Georgia, and now we're just looking. Does he go as high as 5 to the Chargers? Does he fall to 15, 18? But either way, we love Brock Bowers.
Back to Austin.
So with the 5th pick, I'm on the clock. I am taking Brian Thomas Jr. here. Man, he balled out at the NFL Combine. Talk about someone who made a lot of money that day. He scored a 9.97 out of 10 on his RAS score, ranking 10th out of 3,063 wide receivers. From 1987 to 2024. His 40 time, 4.33, 38.5-inch vert. And just a quick reminder, the final thing I'll say about Brian Thomas Jr., 17 touchdowns, which ranked first in college football, 68 receptions, 1,177 yards, 6'3", 209. He's going to be a mid-first round pick in the 2024 NFL draft. It's not going to be like a late first anymore, man. He might be 15 overall to the Colts. He could be 17 overall to the Jags. He's going to go a lot earlier now. So I'm very happy taking Brian Thomas Jr. here at the 5th overall pick.
John Laub, back to you.
It's tough for me because I would have said 5 days ago Troy Franklin, but I agree with what a lot of Matty says. He fell enough for me, so I'm not going to take him here. I can't go running back. There might be people who are looking at a running back. I'm not going running back this early. I'm going Caleb Williams. The value of getting the ceiling of a dual threat star running back. If I'm 6th, I'm probably a decent team. So I'll go for the ceiling and believe that Caleb Williams will hit it. I love Caleb here.
Matty, every time we do these Futurecast mocks, Caleb Williams is starting to go in the mid-first in single QB. It's like we're on the way. He's a locked-in prospect. So for me here at the 107, I could go a number of ways. I could go running back. I could go wide receiver. I think I'm going to go spicy. I'm going to go Xavier Worthy, and we're going to show the Xavier Worthy getting his big-time spike off the 4.21. I think he's going to be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. I think someone's going to trade up, take that speed. We've seen these really fast wide receivers continually get pushed up. You think about where Jalen Waddle was selected. I think there's a chance that Xavier Worthy is right around the Brian Thomas range now in the NFL draft, and he could go ahead of Thomas.
Theo, I don't know why you're doing this to me. You're supposed to be my friend, and now you've taken my pick twice in a row. So I have to pivot, but I don't have to go all that far. I'll go with A.D. Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell. He also showed up at the combine, 6'2", 205, has 97th percentile across the board, 40-yard dash, speed score, burst score. Only 21 years old. I think he also got himself locked into that first round to probably a situation that is pretty favorable for fantasy, honestly. So to get him here at the 108, I would rather have had Worthy, Theo, but I will fall back on his teammate A.D. Mitchell because I think now we can breathe easy that he's a first-round pick in the NFL.
Austin, 109. What are we feeling? Are we going running back here, or are we sticking with the wide receiver run?
I'm going to do it, Theo. I'm going to pull trigger here on the first running back off the board, and I just changed my rankings, actually. For the longest time, I had Jonathan Brooks, and now I'm pivoting. I have Trey Benson as my RB1, and for what it's worth, man, that 4.39 time, that 40 time, 97th percentile, 6 foot, 216 pounds. Breece Hall, he also ran a 4.39. Jonathan Taylor, he also ran a 4.39. No, I don't necessarily think he's going to have quite the success as those two top-tier dynasty running backs have, but I do like a lot about Trey Benson. For him to fall to the 9th overall pick feels great, man. Let me say this final thing. I firmly believe that Trey Benson will be the first running back off the board in the 2024 NFL draft now.
I love it. I considered him where I took Xavier Worthy. I think it's a really good spot. And the late first got a lot more valuable with this running back ascension, that's for sure. John Laub, tricky spot for you here. Are you going to take your RB1?
I am, my friend. I can't. The value is here. I do think he's in the running with Trey Benson for one of the top 2 running backs in the draft. But I'm going to take Blake Corum here. I think his floor is very high, and I think the NFL is going to like him more than the fantasy, X universe. He's just a solid football player with agility and burst. Long speed might not be as incredible, but the agility and burst and vision is just awesome.
Yeah, those are really good picks, guys. And I could go running back here. but I sort of want to flag plant this, Matty, and keep this as a thing now. In single QB leagues, I think after the NFL draft, I think this player is going to be going in the first round. Just ran a 4.39 40 at the combine. He tore up the Senior Bowl. Lad, McConkey, I'm snaking Matty Kiwoom every single pick this draft, and it feels fantastic. Lad McConkey, I think he's going to be like the 25th pick in the NFL draft. I really think he's going to sneak in there. A lot of people saying he's going to be like the Carolina, New England, beginning of the second, Kansas City, end of the first. I think someone right in that 25 overall range. There's nothing not to like at this point.
You're right. And there's nothing I could say to combat that. You are batting 1,000 on stealing my guys. That was definitely a tear break for me as it's coming to play out. So I'm going to pivot to running back. I'm going to take a running back that I have at the top tier of the class after his performance over the weekend. That's Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright, he came out fast, 4.38, had the best broad jumps. We know he's explosive. And now we can start checking those boxes. He is explosive. We know he finishes runs. We know he can get through the hole quickly. And now in my opinion, when I see the guy on film and now that I know his workout metrics, I believe he is the best home run hitter at the running back position in the class. And there are a number of spots that he could go to where I think he is a weapon for us fantasy gamers in 2024. So with not knowing the landing spot, I'm just going to bet on the talent, bet on that home run ability. Give me Jalen Wright at the end of the first because Theo keeps taking my picks.
Listen, you got the home run hitter, Jalen Wright, right there at the end of the first. And guys, what a difference this makes, John, and Matty, when we did this about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I believe we had one running back in the first round, possibly two. Yeah. Now we have three. And there could have been, right after the NFL draft, if Jonathan Brooks gets drafted at the end of the, second round, early third, he's in there. If Braylon Allen runs at Wisconsin's Pro Day, he could be in there. So running backs are rising and early seconds are worth a lot more. Let's recap it real quick. Austin Abbott takes Marvin Harrison Jr. John Laub takes Malik Neighbors. I took Rome Odunze at the 103. Matty runs to the podium, takes Brock Bowers. Austin takes Brian Thomas Jr. of LSU. John takes Caleb Williams, the first quarterback off the board, at the 106. I take Xavier Worthy, a riser, at the 107. Matty Kiwoom takes Adonai Mitchell at the 108. Austin takes the first running back off the board, Trey Benson. John follows up with Blake Corum. I take Lad McConkey, and Matty Kiwoom takes Jalen Wright. We're back to Austin Abbott. We're at the 201.
So the 201, I'm on the clock, and I'm walking away with Jonathan Brooks here. I feel great about it, fellas. I'll tell you what, man. I think it might be the cool thing to get back in on Jonathan Brooks come NFL draft, come your Dynasty Rookie Draft. I kind of feel like there's going to be more people who are pivoting back to Jonathan Brooks being their RB1 over Trey Benson or any of these other guys. I think a lot of people are going to be back in on him, and here's what I'll say about Jonathan Brooks. Just a quick reminder, 8 straight games of 98-plus rushing yards. 241 yards, 2 touchdowns against Kansas. He missed 4 games, and he still had 1,425 total yards. So I think Jonathan Brooks is the truth, man. And we play Dynasty. This isn't redraft. So I'm happy to be patient, take the time, and draft Jonathan Brooks here in the second round.
Great value. John Law, back to you.
I wanted Jonathan Brooks. I was eyeballing him desperately. So this is a conundrum because I do think the quarterbacks are interesting, but only one have gone off the board. So I would gamble that I can still get a player later. I still believe in him, even though he has fallen. I'm going Troy Franklin here. I think there still might be, he's going to be landing spot dependent, but I still believe that the young man can play and make an impact. So I still have him in the top 6 wide receivers. I'll take Troy Franklin here.
I like that a lot. I would have considered Troy Franklin if he was still on the board at the 203. I will go back to the running back position because our tier of my top 6 guys is drying up, and I'm going to punish Braylon Allen for not running. So I'm going to take Marshawn Lloyd, and I think Marshawn Lloyd's really, really good value at the 203. I think there's a chance that after the actual NFL draft, Troy Franklin, that Marshawn Lloyd goes as the first running back. If we did this on, Monday after the NFL draft, Marshawn Lloyd might be our first running back selected. I think he's headed way up. I'm happy to get him at the 203. Back over to our guy, Matty Kiwoom.
I think we can all say we are all worried about Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen was a perennial top running back choice in these mocks. He is still now on the board, and that's because a very lackluster performance in terms of bad hands, not explosive, didn't have much jumping ability, didn't run the 40, yet being down 10 pounds from his playing weight. Not really excited, or not. I will say I'm very concerned about the Hulk of a human being in Braylon Allen, so much so that I'm not going to select him. I'm actually going to go back to the QB well. Drake May is my QB2 in the class, but since it's a one QB format, I'm just going to go with the process play, take the guy with the rushing floor, Jaden Daniels, 1 million touchdowns this year, over 1,000 yards rushing, Heisman Trophy winner, and probably a future New England Patriot, baby.
Gotta love it. Jaden Daniels, that's a guy that's gone inside the first round for us. What a difference maker he could be in single QB leagues. Let's go right back to Austin Abbott. We are at the 205.
Absolutely. And I'm going to walk away here with Keon Coleman. I have him at the 202 in my personal Dynasty rookie rankings. So to get him here at 205 feels pretty good. Maybe I'm a little too bullish. Maybe I've watched too many highlight tapes of him. I'm sorry. He looks good on tape, man. I know he's not the greatest separator. I understand it. But, man, here's what I'll say. He's 20 years old. Of course he's not fully polished, right? Of course he has a lot more to improve on as a prospect. I like the good about him, and that's, you can't teach size, right? Keon Coleman has an abundance of it. You can't teach speed. I think he looked phenomenal during the gauntlet. I liked a lot of what I saw from Keon Coleman, and I just think he genuinely has raw athleticism, and I think he has underappreciated footwork. I'll keep it at that, man. So walking away at Keon Coleman here at the 205.
Taking it right back to John Laub.
Normally, I've been looking at a tight end, specifically Jatavian Sanders now. But Theo, you mentioned it. I was not happy with his lack of athleticism. I can't take a tight end in the second round anymore. So I'm going to bypass the tight end here. I love the wide receiver board. It is loaded. So I'm going to go to Drake May here. In a one quarterback league with the rushing upside, I think last year, didn't we have almost a record number of quarterbacks start games in the NFL? It was like some crazy number, correct? So in a one quarterback league, I think we've all been there where you're literally on your third quarterback in a fantasy team. You're like, all right, give me something. So I'll take Drake May and hope that he gets some starts and those legs give him fantasy points.
Yeah, and Matty's made this point, which I thought was excellent, that Drake May can run. Yes. We squint and see Josh Allen, not Josh Allen, but like some of the things stylistically that they do with Josh Allen. You could see some offensive coordinator say, I'm going to use Drake May as the goal line, threat. I'm going to use him in short yardage. Maybe I'm going to do a couple of design running plays, but we really need an offensive coordinator to give into that. Like that's important for him, I think. But yeah, I think it's solid value right there for a guy like Drake May. For me here, guys, I'm going to go with a guy that sort of had a quiet combine, but didn't do anything wrong. He just happened to be playing around a bunch of guys who had really strong performances, and that's Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson runs like a 4.41. I think he's a second round pick. I think his floor is the third round. Again, we want these guys that did well at the Senior Bowl. That was a trend we've seen over the past few years, especially last year. And I think middle of the second round for Roman Wilson. A couple weeks ago, Matty Kiwoom took him at the end of the first round, or maybe early second. So I feel like I'm getting a slight discount here. I'm going to go Roman Wilson.
Thanks again, Theo. Literally had Roman Wilson in my hip pocket, ready to pull the trigger. So I'm going to pivot here, and I'm going to go with a guy that I think probably disappointed a lot of people because his athleticism wasn't quite there, but his on-field workouts were great. His route running I know is great. I'm going to go with wide receiver from Central Florida, Javon Baker.
Oh, I was hoping he'd last a little longer.
It just goes to show like the strength of this wide receiver class, guys, that like Javon Baker, like basically like from here on, like the 208 to like the 305, we're going to see a bunch of wide receivers that we might all rank differently, but they're all going to go on day two. So it doesn't really matter. Like Javon Baker is going to sneak into the third round. So Matty, flag plant your guy there. Back to you, Austin.
Absolutely. I'm on the clock here, and I am walking away with Braylon Allen, man. He feels like a value now. I feel like I'm a little repetitive. I keep saying that, but man, these running backs keep falling to me later, and I'm content with it. Braylon Allen, I understand he disappointed people. I get it. He runs aggressive. He's violent. I think he's an underrated pass blocker, man. And the fact that he skipped his senior year of high school, not a lot of people know that, and almost has 1,300 rushing yards at the age of 17 is just absurd, right? And that early collegiate production is always going to get my attention. He dominated Ohio State at the age of 18. I don't think it's a fluke. Yes, it was disappointing, his performance, that is, at the NFL Combine. It's okay. It's not the end all. I'm still in on Braylon Allen, especially here at the 209, the end of the second round. Sign me up, man. I think he can absolutely beat some of the older veteran running backs if he lands in the right spot. So I'm happy to take Braylon Allen here.
Back to John Laub. Great value on Braylon Allen. I'm having a little bit of FOMO for not taking him now because that's like big risk reward spot right there. Really good one.
This is going to be a conundrum if this happened to me. I think this is a great example of volume versus efficiency, and you have to trust your eyeballs. I believe J.J. McCarthy is the fourth best quarterback in this draft class. If you look at raw numbers versus Bo Nix is going to come out on top. If you look at advanced metrics and you say to yourself, J.J. McCarthy is 20 years old with an undefeated season and championship in his belt, and his third down numbers, someone posted on X, his third down numbers and his numbers against big teams like Ohio State, Washington in the playoffs are silly, incredibly silly. I'm going to go J.J. McCarthy here, and I might have to be patient, but late second round, I like the value.
Okay, so we have basically our big four quarterbacks are off the board. It speaks to the strength of the class. You rarely see four quarterbacks in the first two rounds of a single, QB format like this, but this is a good year, guys. For me at the 211, Matty, this feels like it's been like a seesaw, like wild swings, a roller coaster ride. But I got to reward Xavier Legette for his strong combine.
Ooh, yeah,
he gives us a 4.39 40, and the dude is just a beast. At the end of the day, not every NFL team has to love him, but there's going to be some team that says that's my guy in the middle of the second round based on what he can do athletically. I realize he's old. I realize he didn't do anything till his final season at South Carolina, but betting on an outlier at near the 2-3 turn is a lot easier to do than Matty. We were talking about having to draft him at the end of the first round, 6 weeks ago. Now it's become sort of a value here, end of the second. So Xavier Legette, another wide receiver off the board at 211. Matty, close out the second round, and then we'll do a recap.
So for me, this is a tier break now, could be as big as the Grand Canyon in a few weeks at the running back position. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Will Shipley. After being at the Combine, after seeing these guys perform, I think that this class has a real chance to dud out. And now that we've had the top 7 guys off the board, I think now we're looking at a potentially huge tier break. So I want to make sure I get the guy who was productive in college, comes out with the requisite NFL size, 5'11", 206. And he said at Hit the Podium during his scrum that he believes he's the best all-purpose back in this class. And he said he doesn't believe that it's even close. Gotta love that confidence. Gotta love that moxie. And we'll see some of those testing numbers in about a week at the Clemson Pro Day.
Yeah, that should be really, really a fun one to watch. And Shipley, we talked about him, Matty, like a couple weeks ago, how nobody was talking about him.
I know.
This is a guy that had nearly 3,000 rushing yards at Clemson, played as a true freshman at Clemson. And like you said, this guy can catch the football. So for better or for worse, he's going to be somebody's third down back. And, we've seen these guys like Jerome Ford, when they get that opportunity, they give us RB2 production. So Will Shipley, I love that pick. And I love how you get like the RB7 in the class, end of the second round. Let's quickly recap this, guys. I will recap the entire draft when we're done, but I don't want to read off 24 names. Let's keep it rocking. At the 201, Austin Abbott selected Jonathan Brooks. John Laub took Troy Franklin at the 202. I took Marshawn Lloyd at the 203. Matty took Jaden Daniels at the 204. Austin took Keon Coleman at the 205. Drake May went to John Laub at the 206. I took Roman Wilson at the 207. Matty took Javon Baker at the 208. Austin took Braylon Allen at the 209. The lowest he has gone on any Futurecast draft at the 209. John takes J.J. McCarthy at the 210. The highest J.J. McCarthy's ever gone in a Futurecast single QB draft. I took Xavier Legette. Matty Kiwoom took Will Shipley. So right back to Austin Abbott with the 301. This is the final round we're going to draft.
So here's the beauty of the NFL Combine, man. It's knocking some players down, and I'm walking away with Ja'Tavion Sanders here at the 301. Man, there's so much to like about Ja'Tavion Sanders. 6'4", 245, 4.69 40 time, which ranked 73rd percentile. Coming off almost 700 yards and only 2 touchdowns this season. But, man, here's some notable information about Ja'Tavion Sanders. He had huge production as a redshirt freshman, separates and blocks very well, and I thought he had late hands. I thought he was a great chain mover. And, man, when it mattered most, he crushed 3rd-ranked Alabama. He crushed 2nd-ranked Washington, 18th-ranked Oklahoma State. I felt like he always showed up when it mattered most. So to take him here at the 301 feels good, man.
Really good one right there. Really, really good value. Back to John Laub.
Early 3rd round in a dynasty draft, I'm going to do one of 2 things. I'm going to go for a floor player who I like, or I'm going to go for a high ceiling. McCarthy's gone, high ceiling. All the quarterbacks, I think, with high ceiling. So I'm going to go with the guy who shocked me at the Combine athletically, Ricky Pearsall. Oh, my God. He ran a 4.41, 4.05 in the 20-yard shuttle, 6.63 in the cone drill. I did not see those extreme athletic numbers coming out. He's my number 11 at wide receiver right now. I do like the film, and he's much more athletic than I thought. So I'll go Pearsall here because I think he has a really nice high floor in the NFL.
Now I feel like Matty Kiwoom because you sniped me with Ricky Pearsall. I love that value. I think, like we talked about with like how flat it is, like he could have gone where Javon Baker went or, where Xavier Legette went. They're all sort of in like a, pick your favorite type tier. But Pearsall, like he could get much higher NFL draft capital than we would have anticipated with those testing numbers. An interesting one. I'm sort of like filibustering this pick though, because you just sniped me in the 3rd round. So I'll go with another guy who really impressed me athletically. And it's a guy that we haven't really been too excited about. I think this guy could fail. This could be a guy that ends up being like a Marquez Valdes-Scantling type usage-wise. But it's also a guy that we only saw have 1 season at the highest levels of college football, and that's Tez Walker. Oh. Tez Walker has a fantastic combine, had one really good season at North Carolina, sort of a vanilla Senior Bowl. I remember Matty Kiwoom and Cody were kind of underwhelmed by his performance there, but definitely picked it up at the combine with those numbers. I will take a shot on the mega athlete in the 3rd round, who I think will be a 2nd round pick.
For the first time tonight, you have not sniped the pick. I had this guy in the holster. I'm glad he's available for me. Jalen Polk, wide receiver from Washington. He has the requisites, athleticism, 4.2 speed, but he's bursty. He had a great year at Washington, as all the receivers pretty much did in 2023. But one thing that I found very, very interesting, when you ask the Washington receivers and you ask the Washington coaching staff, when they say, who's the leader in that wide receiver room? Who's the guy that gets everyone going? It must be Rome, right? And they said, no, it's Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk is the alpha of a wide receiver room full of very good players. These are the intangibles I'm looking for in round 3, guys that I think will be on a roster, perform in a way that I'm not looking at a roster clogger in short order. I think the skill set, the ability to play in the slot for Jalen Polk gives him an opportunity to produce pretty early on, and that's what I'm looking for in the 3rd round.
Austin Abbott.
Back on the clock, I'm walking away with Malachi Corley here, man.
Nice
the
pick.
Yak King, the self-proclaimed Yak King. He's one of my favorite sleepers. I don't even know if he's a sleeper anymore. Feels like a lot of people are talking about him. Man, 2022, he really, really put himself on the map with 101 receptions, almost 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. And then this past season in 2023, 79 catches, almost 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. And here's what I love, man. 5'11", 215. He had a sub 5% drop rate, 40 missed tackles forced in 2022, which was first in all of college football. And his college production, man, if there's any metric that matters to me, I think college production is something that really stands out, right? And he had over 3,000 career collegiate receiving yards. So he was problematic. He ranked first by a mile in 2022 in YAC and ranked fifth in 2023 in YAC. I just think his vision once the ball's in his hands is simply unmatched. So landing here at the end, the middle of the third round feels pretty good. I like Malachi Corley a lot.
It's a really good value.
One thing about Malachi Corley before we move on to, he was asked by NFL teams if he would work out at running back. Found that to be pretty interesting that teams are looking at his potential versatility at the next level.
Ty Montgomery part 2. John Laub, we have a little bit of philosophical difference on this. Do you find that a positive or a negative that guys like Dylan Lobby, guys like Malachi Corley are asked to test at two positions? I know Johnny Wilson has shown no interest in being a tight end. If Johnny Wilson was a tight end, we would have taken him 12 picks ago. But like do you think that that's we don't understand what this guy is, or is this hey, we're excited about his versatility and maybe a few teams asked us to have him test in a couple of different testing drills?
This is a question I should do more research on, because I'll say this: I'm generally skeptical. It means that a player is a jack of all trades and master of none in a little bit. And I like to go for players. Where can they win? How can they dominate? So I'm very weary when teams are asking players to switch positions. And just kind of thinking off the top of my head over years, it does seem anecdotally in my memory that is a kind of, it's not a good sign. Doesn't mean that there are, what do we call it? Difference makers who do that, but I don't remember a lot who are tested at two positions. I mean, I would say normally that's negative. So that concerns me, yes. And on my pick here, I can't believe he fell here, but I'm going to go for a ceiling play. And Austin mentioned him. And Austin, I like him a lot. I'm going Jalen McMillan here. I'm going to go athleticism in the third round here. He's got size. He's got athleticism. He is being he was hurt this year. And Polk and Odunze were so good, I think he's going overlooked. I really like Jalen McMillan at this spot here.
Those are it's all been very good, very, very good values here, guys, with the Malachi Corley pick, the Jalen Polk pick, the Jalen McMillan pick, the Pearsall pick, the Tez Walker pick. Like, it's okay to like a lot of wide receivers in this class. I know there's one. Matty Kiwoom's keeping one in his back pocket, hoping they don't snipe him with this pick. I know there's one on Matty Kiwoom's mind right now. But for me, I don't think I'm gonna take that one. I'm gonna go Ray Davis, who did enough at the combine with a 4.5 240, decent size, big time production. We saw him play at 3 colleges, really weird profile. He's a little bit older back. And I do think it's a significant drop off between like Shipley and like the Ray Davis tier. But if Ray Davis falls in the right place, I think he's a handcuff next year with a chance to get on an NFL football field and help people. 7 receiving touchdowns this year, and scored back-to-back seasons of rushing for double-digit touchdowns in the SEC. Production is there. 4.5 240. We'll take a shot in the third round.
Boys, Bucky Irving is still on the board here.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Him. Go ahead and take him.
I'm not taking him, but I just want to point out that is insane. I don't care if it's table talk. I am flabbergasted because just last time we did this, there's no way that this would have happened. But I am going to take the guy that Theo alluded to. I'm going to take Brendan Rice, son of Jerry Rice. Have you heard of him? Only the best receiver of all time. Now, is his son going to be that? Probably not. But what he did show us in Indy is that he's faster than expected. 4.5 speed's good. At 6'2", 208 pounds. He's got 33-inch arms, which is 82nd percentile. So he's going to be able to go up and get it. And we kind of alluded to this earlier when we were talking about Marshawn Lloyd, the connection to Caleb Williams and how that could swing value for an NFL franchise. when I was interviewing, when I asked Brendan Rice a question about should we draft him in fantasy football and how would he talk about himself in 3 words or less, Caleb crashed the party. And Caleb decided to go take it upon himself to ask Brendan Rice a fantasy football question. Caleb loves him some Brendan Rice. And if the Bears take him at the 101, you better believe they're going to listen to Caleb if he says, take my guy Rice when the appropriate round comes, probably round 3. So getting him here at the 308 with the upside, with the long arms and the ability to go up and get it, that's what I'm looking for, just some one trait type of thing. What can he do? How can he win at the next level? I could see Brendan Rice being someone that surprises us because also his route running was a lot better in those on-field drills than I ever would have thought given what he really looked like at USC.
Yeah, 4.5 40, for him was, I think, a win, Matty, for his size.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting prospect. We're going to go back to Austin. Guys, we have 4 picks left before a 36-player recap.
We're in the home stretch, baby.
So at the 309, I'm walking away with Jacob Corum, wide receiver out of Arizona. I was just disclaimer, man. Almost took Bucky Irving here. Really, really close. Just I wasn't feeling it. Jacob Corum, though, he's a player who's been consistently producing at a high level for 3 consecutive seasons. You love to see it. And when he was asked about his route running, you know who he mentioned that he liked to replicate his game after? It was Tyler Lockett. He said he had been most influential in getting him to this point. And that's something I really admire. That's something that really got my attention because he's not a big guy, right? Corum is 5'8", 170 pounds. He just turned 23 years old, so he's a little bit on the older side, but he ran 95th percentile, a 4.38 40 time. That's something that's going to absolutely get your attention, and that's the type of upside I want to take, that type of electricity this late in the draft. This is when I'm okay with pulling trigger on these types of prospects, so I would love to see this kid land somewhere like, honestly, the New York Jets behind Garrett Wilson paired with, Aaron Rodgers. I think that would be a nice fit. I think there's a lot of teams that he could thrive with.
Yeah, no, for sure. He looked really good in the gauntlet. It was like a perfect type gauntlet. Let's go John Laub. Your final selection, John. Your guy, Audric Estime, is just sitting there at the 3-10. Are you going to rescue him or are you going elsewhere?
I am not throwing him a lifeline. He's going to have to swim on his own. I'm going to go on my board. And Theo mentioned him. And I agree with Theo, so I'm going Malik Washington here.
Love it.
And Theo mentioned how good he was at the Combine. Let me give you 2 other stats that blow my mind about how good he was last year. He had a 47% team aerial dominator. Every defensive player knew when they played Virginia, they had one guy to stop. One guy. And his name was Malik Washington, and no one stopped him. He was 47% of the offense. And the other stat that I love this sticky stat, receiving yards per team pass attempt. My benchmark is 2.5. Malik Washington was 3.61. He obliterates those 2 numbers. Those are unbelievable. And then he showed us athleticism. I'm all in. I love him right here.
Great value. Matty, we have all these tight ends staring at us on the board here. We've got a few running backs. I think I'm going to go with it's difficult for tight end 3, and I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on tight end 3 right after I make this pick. But I'm going to go with Ben Sinnott over Theo Johnson. And Ben Sinnott had one of the best verticals in the whole combine, with a 40-inch vertical, best among the tight ends. He runs a 4.68 40, which was faster than Jatavian Sanders by a hair. But still, if I would have told you that Ben Sinnott runs a faster 40 than Jatavian Sanders a month ago, Matty, you would have said I was nuts. And we're talking about a guy that led Kansas State in receiving yards, led Kansas State in touchdown receptions. They lined him up all over the field. And now we know he has the requisite athleticism to be a fantasy producer. I think he's a better bet for fantasy production than Theo Johnson is, and than Jaheim Bell, where you have the Theo Johnson didn't really show the production at Penn State. We're betting on an athlete taking the next step at the NFL level, and Jaheim Bell is like 6 feet tall. So for me, I'm going to go with Ben Sinnott. I'm going to flag plant him as my tight end 3 in this class. Just quickly around the horn, who's your tight end 3 right now, Austin?
Theo. I have Theo Johnson right now. The college production was, far from ideal, but that wow, what an incredible athlete he was. He tested out of the gym, just incredible. So he absolutely got my attention, and I feel like this is a very very difficult question to answer. Like, there's no definitive, like, locked in tight end 3 in this class at the moment. So this is a great question.
Theo Johnson's right there for me as well. John, who's your tight end 3?
This is going to say I have Ben Sinnott at number 2 now.
Oh, wow.
I went back and watched film. Now, if you don't know, his quarterback was Will Howard, who is now going to play at Ohio State next year. So this is fascinating. And Ben Sinnott's athleticism is off the charts for what he is. I think he slammed Sam Laporta. I think he might go at the top of the second round. I mean, he is really good. Watch some film, folks. Yeah. And here's 2 numbers that I really liked. He had a 22% team aerial dominator. That's the highest in this class. And I was stunned when I went back to look at this number. His ADOT for a tight end is 10.1. 10.1 for a tight end. That is incredible. He's running deep routes and they're throwing the ball to him. My concern in the beginning was his age. He came out of high school in 2019. So I was wondering but you know what? I'm looking in a 4-year window at a tight end. Ben Sinnott might play from day 1. I think he's going early day 2 because I think the NFL likes him a lot more than people think. So it's Jatavian Sanders. To answer your question, Theo, Jatavian Sanders is now my number 3. Sinnott is my number 2.
Matty Kiwoom, which way are you going before your pick with your tight end 3 in this class?
We've talked about him enough. It is Ben Sinnott here, but I want to tease something because I also think I may have found the sleeper tight end in this class. But everyone's tuning into the Futurecast. You're going to have to tune into the next episode of Blue Chips where I uncover that. I'm giving away all of my secrets, all of my takeaways from the Combine, including the sleeper tight end in this class. You're going to have to check out the next episode of Blue Chips.
Yeah, definitely check out all of the episodes of Blue Chips. If you're into what we're talking about here on Futurecast, Matty goes deeper. Matty's going to do some Devy content. Matty's going to do some very cool things with college football with Blue Chips. So definitely keep this in your rotation. Really doing a good job with that, Matty. And now you got me like thinking I'm going to try to guess your tight end. But we had so many tight ends run faster than a 4.65 40, which was really exciting for this class to see so many athletic tight ends. I don't know. Maybe this tight end class ends up surprising us because a month ago we weren't so excited. Now we're getting a little bit more excited. Matty, close us out here at the 3-12 final selection.
So I'm going to pick a player here that I want to make sure I mention because the draft may come and go and his value is kaputs. It's dead. It's in the ground. But we got to talk about this guy after Saturday, and that's Isaac Guerendo, running back from Louisville. If you don't like Bucky Irving because he was small and slow, then you should like Isaac because he's big and fast. He was the fastest running back on at the Combine that worked out. He also weighed in at 220 pounds. You look at his metrics at player profile, you're looking at a 98th percentile type of athlete. And then you want to say to yourself, well, why didn't he produce at Louisville? Well, he was the 1B behind Jordan Jouar, who we haven't drafted yet in one of these things. We're not going to draft in one of these things. But he did carry, and I'm talking about Isaac Guerendo, he did carry a 6.0 or better yards per attempt over his last 3 years. He's been efficient. He's been somebody who has been productive, but hasn't gotten the volume. So if he gets a chance at the NFL, he's big, he's fast, he's effective, he's efficient. I'll take a shot on him at the end of the 3rd round.
I love it. It's definitely a guy that we're going to have to look into. I think you can let the draft capital kind of be your guide. Last year, the most athletic running back in terms of the speed score was Deneric Prince. We've seen Kenny Nwangu go nuts on the speed score. But if some NFL team says Guerendo in the 5th round, then you definitely want to get in there on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like he was nothing. He had 800 yards at Louisville last year. I've seen some people say he didn't do anything. 800 yards, 800 yards. This was so much fun. I'm going to quickly recap it, and then guys, definitely promote your stuff once again so people know where to find you. Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 101, Malik Neighbors at the 102, Roma Dunze at the 103, Brock Bowers at the 104, Brian Thomas at the 105, Caleb Williams goes 106, Xavier Worthy 107, Adonai Mitchell 108, Trey Benson 109, Blake Corum 110, Ladd McConkey at the 111, Jalen Wright at the 112 to close out the first round. Second round, Austin Abbott gets Jonathan Brooks to start it out the 201, Troy Franklin at the 202, Marshawn Lloyd at the 203, Jaden Daniels 204, Keon Coleman at the 205, Drake May at the 206, Roman Wilson at the 207, Javon Baker at the 208, Braylon Allen at the 209, JJ McCarthy at the 210, Xavier Legette at the 211, Will Shipley at the 212, and then we closed it out with our third round. Austin selected Jatavian Sanders at the 301. We saw Ricky Pearsall go to John Laub at the 302. I selected Tez Walker. Matty Kiwoom selected Jalen Polk. Malachi Corley at the 305, wide receiver from Western Kentucky. Jalen McMillan, wide receiver Washington, went at the 306. I took Ray Davis of Kentucky, running back, at the 307. Matty took Brendan Rice at the 308. Austin took Jacob Cowing of Arizona at the 309. Malik Washington, a big riser, to John Laub at the 310. I took Ben Sinat of Kansas State, a tight end 3 in our draft at the 311. And Matty closed it out with Isaac Guerrendo of Louisville, the athletic freak who tore up the combine. Austin Abbott, let everybody know where they can find your work.
Yep, at Austin Abbott FF on Twitter and all social media platforms. I've been consistently putting out rookie content, draft content every day. Video content is probably my favorite. Prospect breakdowns every single week, and I'm just always happy to talk ball, man. Feel free to reach out. This has been so much fun. This was a really good episode, fellas.
Yeah, no, for sure. And check out Austin's works. You know, when we say that a lot of people are putting out videos on prospects, Austin's are some of the best out there. We're very happy to have those at Player Profiler. Check him out. He's on his own Twitter. He's putting out a lot of really cool stuff as well. John Laub, let everybody know where they can find you and what you have coming out.
Yeah, and I concur. I follow Austin on X/Twitter. I'm trying to call it X from now on, but I check out his profiles whenever he posts them. They're great. Great to have you on the team. Great to meet you, Austin. My stuff, my written profiles, and my running back, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end models are all on Player Profiler now. And you can follow me on X at GridironSkull91. I love having people DM me, ask me if you're in a third round, fourth round of a dynasty, who I like at those positions. I love answering them because there's going to be value in this draft in the fourth and fifth round of dynasty. There's still players on the board I like. So, yes, feel free to ask me up if you want someone to need help.
I think we're going to have to do a 4-round mock draft next time we do this next time, guys. Matty Kiwoom, I understand you have a massive guest this week on the game plan.
Some would say he is an OG.
Yeah, there you go. I'm excited. I'm going to be on the game plan with Matty Kiwoom. Look for that on Saturday. Matty, when's Blue Chips dropping?
Blue Chip's going to be dropping this week. I recorded it today, so it's in the can, ready to rock and roll. We're going to find a time slot. We're going to put it out to the atmosphere. It's my takeaways from the combine, about 6 or 7 of them, so you want to check that out. The game plan's in full flux. Trade Gods is now back every Wednesday at 9 p.m., me and Jason Allwine. And just go to playerprofile.com. We got a ton of draft content coming out. My Mock 3.0, my big board, is going to be up to 125 players. Mock 3.0 is going to be a 3-rounder. Thinking with trades. It's going to get crazy, and it's going to get a whole lot of fun. So head over to playerprofiler.com to get all that stuff.
Yeah, and check out my recent episodes of Dynasty Life. I had Curtis Patrick. I had John's partner in crime, Matt Hicks. And I also had Ian Miller. We put out a few of them. I've got a bunch more on the way. And then Brett Whitefield of Fantasy Points is coming on press coverage. And he's an interesting ranker. Brett's really, really sharp, but he has J.J. McCarthy as QB1 overall in this class. So I'm going to get a chance to ask him why exactly he has that ranking. But we're definitely going to – I'm excited to talk shop with him. So look for that episode of press coverage, and then look for the Sonic Truth pod we dropped earlier this week. Stick with us here at Player Profiler. No one is doing Dynasty better than us right now in terms of the depth of shows, the depth of articles, and the amount of talent that we have here. And stick with us here at Futurecast. Matty and I have a bunch of cool shows like this planned, getting you ready for your rookie drafts.
It's going to be a good one. Come back the next time. Check out the Futurecast. Matty, Kiwoom, Theo, OG, joined by John and Austin. We'll catch you next time. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.